Welcome to a new Harry's Garage video, and as you can see we're back in Iain Tyrrell's workshop because this is part 5 of the Lamborghini Espada engine rebuild. And there's been a slight pause. I looked back and we did the last video sort of beginning of December, and what we've been waiting for were the pistons to arrive. They've actually were being made in America, and they're made exactly to size for the car. They're not on the shelf items, but they're back in the workshop, and that means we're at the stage where we can rebuild the engine. So I've come up, have a quick look at what else is going on in this workshop. There's always good stuff around. I see the Miura's got stripped as well. The engine's come apart on that as well. But what I'm really interested in is go and join Marcus and Ian are at the bench, and what we're going to do is just start the engine rebuild in this video. So I can't wait to see it.
Hello.
Hello.
Action stations by the look of it.
Yes.
Yes. Good to see you again, Ian.
And you, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Marcus, I want to say, because you're putting some grotty stuff on the bearings already, aren't you?
That's
all
right,
ready to go.
Yeah. Just wait the bedding in.
That's
colloidal graphite paste.
Oh, I knew
you
that,
knew
really,
that, didn't you?
Yeah. Colloidal graphite.
Yeah.
And what's it doing? That's just on the bearings, just going on the bearings before you actually put the crank into place.
It's very whizzy stuff, really, because it sticks to everything like glue.
Yes.
But as soon as the oil gets round and sort of
it washes off.
What's the word? Dissolves into the engine oil.
Right. Because sometimes I've seen people squirt oil on all the bearings before putting the crank in, but this your preferred.
This is. I think it's better. Yeah. Because that will, until the oil pressure builds up, that will carry on sort of working.
Right.
So,
Excellent.
it's all about that startup.
I want to see these pistons. I can't believe they're so lovely. And they've got a little trick bit on here because they've got. This is Teflon, you were saying.
It is
little black skirts.
Yeah, it's it's a friction reducer. So it's a Teflon sprayed-on coating.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah, a lot of pistons manufacturers put bits on, black patches on their pistons.
Right.
And they quite often paint, believe it or not.
Right.
Just to make them look better. This is the real deal. These have been made by a company in California.
Yeah.
I approached British companies in the US. They were about the friendliest and most amenable piston manufacturer, so I've gone with them. And they are, same compression as standard, but they're forged, so they're built to go to high revs.
And this is all just a rewind for people who haven't seen some of the other videos. One of my requests is, if we're going to rebuild the engine, I wanted it sort of a top spec. I've always been a bit jealous of the Miura that was higher revving than the Espada. So I'm not going to be using 8,000 RPM all the time, but this engine basically is capable. So you've investigated how we could do it, and one of the things we had to do was upgrade the quality of the pistons from a cast to a forged.
Correct.
So that's the way around.
Yeah. So that's done. So these are forged. They're too nice to put inside the engine.
They are, aren't they? I wish he'd ordered 13 so I could have one piston for the desk. I'll remember to do that next time.
Superstitious.
Just got the 12.
Yeah,
so
only 12.
And these aren't on the shelf item, are they?
No, they're not. These have been specially made.
So you could say, they're made to your size. You say what size you want them. Is that the case?
That's right. Well, the standard bore is 82 millimetres.
Right.
And we've actually gone for 82.5 to make sure we actually bored beyond any misshapenness in the bores. So, as I mentioned to you previously, the extra 0.5 millimetre diameter gives us about 40 cc.
40 cc.
Which you'll really notice.
I know. I will.
But these should be. These will drag a lot less up and down the cylinders than the original pistons will.
So you think there's a bit of a horsepower gain from having the Teflon
yes, I do.
on there?
Yeah. On a V12 that revs to sort of 7,000, the frictional losses and pumping losses can be 150 brake horsepower.
That's unreal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely unreal. So we don't know what the gain is, but it's it doesn't get all of that back, does it? It just reduces it a little bit.
Yeah, but every little helps.
Yeah. Mega. And then you've done the bores on this to match this. So you waited for the pistons to arrive, measure the bore. The pistons. Is that right? Is that how you did it?
That is exactly right.
Yeah.
The piston manufacturers have given us very precise specifications to work from. I chose the material, so this is not NASCAR spec aluminium.
Right.
This is somewhere in between.
Right. I wasn't going NASCAR racing.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's rule that out.
Yeah, good. Oh well, sorry to break the news to you now.
No.
But they are bespoke. So they've been made. The actual skirt clearance is 2.5 thousandths of an inch. We've actually made it just a tiny bit more. But modern pistons have a much smaller clearance than older pistons do, because the material is more high tech and it doesn't sort of expand and contract.
It doesn't change quite so much.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Well, so the first stage in the engine rebuild then is that crank going into there then,
Exactly.
and then bolting it all up.
Yeah.
I'd better let you crack on then, I would suggest, isn't it, with that, and then we can get on to stage 2. And I'm going to be here long enough, I think, to see a few pistons going.
Well, let's hope so. Yeah. So we've blown everything out. The crank's been polished.
Yeah.
We've put the new shell bearings in.
You've got the manual out.
Yeah, it's for a Miura, but you know,
that's fine by me.
We have got the Espada one here.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you crack on with that.
Happy
because
days.
I'm not getting involved at all at this bit.
Right.
Because otherwise there'll be a crank or a pun rod poking out of here. And say, that was the one that Metcalf did.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in a delivery room at the hospital. I shouldn't make you. Yeah, just I'll shut up while you do this bit.
It needs to go up at your end a bit, actually. That's it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You still got the weight, yeah?
Yeah. Looking good.
Good heavens.
Right, this end short. There we go.
Okay.
Lovely.
I had no idea it's as tight as that.
Yeah.
Tighter fit.
Yeah,
So it's on the webs, isn't it, and on the bearings.
Yeah. This is normally out in fresh air on other engines, the nose of the crank, but it's actually inside
It's actually
here.
inside the crankcase, yeah. How much do you think a crank is worth for one of these?
If you were to buy one from Lamborghini now,
Yeah.
it's about £14,000.
Well, that's,
Plus VAT.
£14,000
Plus
plus
VAT.
VAT. God. So 3,000, 17,000. Yes, a little bit of postage, I'd imagine.
Yes. I think they send the Italian president over personally for that money, actually.
Fly it. Yeah. They only travel first class. So.
Yes.
It's a very beautiful thing, though.
It is, isn't it?
So the next stage is the caps then, main bearing caps, of which there are seven. Enormous bearings then at the end of the cranks. Looking at this, they're bigger area.
Yes, there's
right?
3 different sizes of main bearing shell. Not diameter-wise, but width-wise.
Yeah.
And you have to sort of order them as individual parts, strangely enough, because they've all got individual part numbers. There we are.
First one in place. Now, and what are you doing about the nuts that will go back, the ones that have been used before?
Yes.
That and on the piston. Well, we'll get to the pistons in a minute. But so these have been reused. So the threads, you haven't had to replace those.
No,
then.
the nuts and threads are all absolutely fine.
Yeah.
As a double check, what we do is when we're tightening them, even though manufacturers give you torques and things, it's actually about feel. It's how the thread and the nut are going on. So, for example, I started my working life in a Rolls-Royce and Bentley workshop, and Rolls-Royce and Bentley didn't give torque figures on engines. So it was actually about feel and about seat of the pants.
Right.
If you brought a torque wrench into the workshop, it was probably an instantly sackable offence, because it's all about how the thread actually. It's all about the feel and how the thread actually responds. If you can feel weakness in it as you tighten it, you're finished. I can tell these are going on beautifully, these nuts.
Yeah.
Normally, if a thread or a nut's damaged, you can't thread them.
No. And they're going right tight, aren't they? They're tiny washers, aren't they?
They are
Really
very thin. They're beloved of Lamborghini, these washers. They use them on the cylinder head nuts as well. They are super thin. What I really want to do is make sure that the crank feels nice when all the bearing caps are torqued down.
I see how tight it is.
Yeah. Or not, hopefully, without being too loose. It's all, you know, if it feels right, it is right.
Right. Okay.
So
then you've got those funny things. It's end float. The crank can sort of move this way and that, and you have to put those in.
Well, that's the thrust washers are in.
Thrust washers. That's the
We've already checked the end float actually, and it is it's as it should be.
Excellent.
So in that respect, we're all right.
Because that's every time you press the clutch pedal, isn't it? It pushes against the crank.
Exactly.
The crank has to hold the pressure of the clutch.
And on modern cars, a lot of cars these days, or well, I say modern actually. My idea of modern, before electrics, etc.
Yeah.
You quite often have to push the clutch down before you can start the engine.
I do that. I always think this keeps the starter motor not having to turn all the gearbox.
Exactly.
Is that right?
But a lot of cars have an electrical switch on them.
Oh, they do that as well.
And you can't start the engine unless you put the clutch down.
Yes.
And I always think to myself, it must wreak havoc with the thrust bearings, you know.
So would you start an old engine with the pressing the clutch?
I always do, personally.
Yeah. Because I always think that starter motor is having to turn all the gear cogs in the gearbox.
Exactly.
It must
I agree.
Add drag. You can't see it on camera, but there are little studs either side of the big studs. So is that just an added?
Yeah, famous 4-bolt mains.
Right.
Which are beloved of American hot rodders and things like that. And these had them as standard. So yeah, it just stops everything moving.
Right.
As much because it's aluminium and not cast iron.
Yeah.
It just, you know, precautionary stuff. Really.
Because you were saying this engine was actually a Formula One engine, basically, in it when he designed it.
I think it was Formula One. It was. Well, that's why it started life as a 3.5 litre. I couldn't say for sure. Possibly, it started life even as a 3 litre because I can't remember what the capacity limit was in the early 60s.
No.
But certainly, it sort of after 18 months, it went up to 4. You know, they didn't keep it as 3.5, but they completely re-engineered the block. It's not the same block.
I always think going back to original Lamborghini, the early days, the 350 GT was a heavier car. I mean, Miura was much lighter, so I guess that might have been the reason for 4 litres. I don't know.
Yeah.
I suppose Ferrari was going 4 litre as well, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's the 3.5 litre block wasn't actually up to. I mean, a racing car has a different sort of remit to a road car, doesn't it? As long as it lasts for 24 hours maximum or whatever it is. But a road car, they lead a hard life, don't they? Road cars for a long period. And we're going to try and turn this now.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that!
I'm going to have to do
look
that.
At that!
Look at that! That's lovely. That is lovely, isn't it? It's just. I mean, there's a bit of. It's an ease of movement. I'm going to say sticks. It's not stiction. It's just it's all bolted together. You can feel that those bearings are tight, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, not
we
tight.
We haven't torqued them down yet.
No,
so
but that is lovely.
That
is lovely,
isn't it?
Sorry. Yeah. So it's not a toy. It's an engine.
It's very satisfying.
It's a bit really nice.
It's a bit kinky, actually.
I don't know. Yeah. How do I explain that? Oh, it's just lovely. Yeah. Anyway, moving swiftly on. A bit of a test listen, Marcus.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh dear, this is taking longer than I expected.
So we start at the middle, working on the outside, so one more to go.
It's the obsessive in me.
Yeah.
This is normally reserved for cylinder head tightening, but they all feel absolutely beautiful. Tightened up really nicely.
So now,
now
still turns.
Oh, look at that! Oh, smooth as a thing.
As a V12.
Exactly.
Lamborghini. Right. It's just lovely. Yeah.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah, it's like it's meant to be in there.
Yeah.
God, you just think that's spinning at 7,000 RPM and just doesn't compute, does it? Wow.
Well, that's, I mean, at 6,000 revs, which of course almost every engine, sensible, half-decent engine does, apart from diesels, The pistons are flying up inside the balls 100 times a second.
That's what
It's
it is,
incredible, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? Right, so the crank is now in and spinning just lovely. What's the next stage then?
We'll start putting the pistons and rod assemblies in. So we've put the pistons on the rods with the new gudgeon pins, the new wrist pins, as the Americans call them.
These guys.
Yep. Yeah, and they felt really nice. All the clearances, we've checked and double checked. All the clearances are great. The connecting rods have been away to be crack tested, to be a non-destructive tested. They're all fine, so we can put it all back together with some new big end bearing shells.
Right. So how you do? Because the block's the wrong way around. These go in from the top.
So we just turn the block over.
You can turn the block over, but then you've got to get to the
Exactly.
bottom, and that's the tricky bit.
Precisely.
Yeah, so we're going to watch some magic happen.
Oh.
Yeah. Right. Now you've got an awkward thing called piston rings and all sorts of stuff on there.
Yes. We have a piston ring compressor. So we just put loads of oil. We lather these with oil around here.
When you spec the pistons, what happens about the rings? They just go as standard rings, do they?
Well, the rings are designed for 82.5mm bores, and they're specially made for these pistons.
Right.
But they're not the original. Modern piston rings, in order to reduce frictional losses, have a 1mm top piston ring.
It's much thinner, that top ring.
1.5 was the original Borgo spec for Lamborghini in the 1970s and 60s.
Right. And then there's an oil scraper at the bottom.
Exactly, which is 3mm, and the original Lamborghini one was 4.5.
The holding block.
You put that on there.
Gosh.
And then
I often wondered how they work. Which is number one?
that one actually. One nearest the front.
Right. One nearest, because they're slightly stepped.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Most V12s are like that, so that the rods can be next to each Siamese on the on the journals.
Same journal.
It's complicated later out there, thinking.
Yes. So we're going to knock this in. We have to watch that these don't come up against the crankshaft. So we've got loads of oil in there now.
Yeah.
And just carefully do that. Okay. And then hey presto.
So it goes through that collar. Isn't that lovely? God, I've wrestled. If anybody's wrestled with an engine rebuild without one of those piston ring compressors, I would buy one now, because I've never had it as easy as that. To make sure that shell's the right way round. So it's number to number, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's what you're
everything.
That's what you're
You just want everything to be checked. And Lamborghini actually put little. Remember from taking it apart, they put little split pins through the.
Yes.
There's the hole in the big end bolt, and the split pin goes. These need to nip up to the nearest available slot. It's 44 foot-pounds, the big ends. I'll just spin this round so that you can actually get at it. There we go.
It's just going to show there's the numbers. I don't know if we can see that on camera, but they're the numbers. There's number 2 piston and conrod, and that's what we're matching up those numbers there. It's just lovely. Etched on in 1969 or something.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to leave Marcus just to put a few more pistons in there and conrods, because I just want to have a look at the Espada, because there's been some work going on that over the last few weeks. Right, this looks a little bit tidier than when I last saw it.
Yeah.
Can't
Pete,
get over it.
can we borrow you for a minute?
There was layer upon layer of anti-rust coating, wasn't there? Sort of very old sticky stuff.
Really thick under seal, like bitumen based stuff, the old fashioned stuff.
And that you've taken quite a lot of that off, but it has been doing a good job by the look of it, that and the oil leaks.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, there's no corrosion there at all.
No, that's great.
It's done its job. It's just a case of giving it all a good scrub, really, with detergent to get the oil and road dirt off.
That's going to be great. And it says 400 GT, the Espada.
You can see the chassis number.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a Lamborghini.
Yeah,
which is really good.
It's very pleasing that it's all in such good condition, because these are actually enclosed. This is called a pontoon type frame. That's what it was. That's the basic layout.
Yeah.
And these because they're enclosed box sections, that, like all enclosed box sections of steel of this era, A, they're bare metal on the inside because they didn't paint them, and B, once the humidity from the air gets in through a small pinhole or something, it can't get out, and they just sweat, and what moisture manifests itself as rust. That's the big enemy of cars of this era. But these are absolutely lovely. And it looks original, actually. It does look original.
Yeah, no, it's very solid.
Good.
So basically, it was clean it all off. Spend a couple of days in there with a scraper, getting it all nice and clean.
No, that's really nice.
Etch primer, and then about 3 or 4 coats of acrylic.
Oh right.
Paint,
So it's had a lot more on it than I thought.
Yeah.
Oh okay.
Yeah.
No, really chuffed with the way that looks. Good. Yeah. Just a shiny engine to put in there.
Exactly.
As well.
Yeah, nice clean home for your nice shiny new engine.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Welcome.
Yeah. And then there's a bit on the roof. So you've been trying out some different sort of plastic and thicknesses and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because there's a dilemma here, isn't it? Because
exactly.
The black roof had one advantage. Well, you'll explain. It's how you glue it in place, isn't it?
Well, it's the black roof was largely opaque.
Yeah.
So all this lovely gooey sealant that was around the outside here, you couldn't actually see it because it was so dark. The trick with putting a sort of more clear roof end is going to be to not have this horrible splodgy mess that you can see right around the outside. So there are various options. A lot of modern car windscreens or car windows have a sort of black border to them to get rid of things because they're all bonded in. You'd not use rubber seals anymore. And it sort of disguises all this, the sealant they use. But we can't really do that with the plastic.
No, I don't.
Because we've got to be careful. One thing I'm conscious of is that it doesn't blow off at high speed.
Yeah. Well, that was the first test I did when I test drove this car, was just to go just over 71 miles an hour just to see what the roof did at high speeds. And it didn't do a thing. Yeah, I've been, I have done 120, 130 miles an hour in this car in other parts of the world. Of course, but I have. No, obviously I have. But I mean, the roof was absolutely fine. But I think the possible solution is looking at the surround around the windscreen has this stainless steel alloy, whatever it is, and maybe we do something like that around here, so it actually looks more fitted, shall we say?
Yeah, that would be a really, really good solution. It really would. I think that might be the way to go. It wouldn't look out of place, as you say, and it would save a lot of problems.
I'm in a little place. See if I can. Look at that, it still spins and it's got 2 pistons in. That is mad. Because they don't always, do they? They don't always. Some engines are really tight, aren't they?
Yeah, there's only 2 in at the moment, so it will get, as we go along, it'll get tighter.
Fantastic. Just the 10 to go. We forget how far up into the cylinder head they come, isn't it? That is really quite a lot out, isn't it? God.
Oh yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, the valve timing is critical because the valves are literally 2 or 3 millimeters away from the piston crowns if everything's set up properly. Well, they just narrowly miss each other.
That really is, isn't it? Right out.
If you get the valve timing a tooth or 2 out on the chain,
it's bang. Yeah.
You get a very loud clattering noise.
Remember
That's
how
lovely.
loose they were, your old pistons.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
true.
The thing.
That is actually, isn't it? Because we could move those, couldn't we? These are absolutely spot. Well, they're bob on, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's great. So, next stage is pistons, obviously in, bolt up, and then you've got to build the heads up, haven't you?
Yes. We're waiting for the valve springs to arrive still.
That's it.
I've finally arrived at a formula with the valve spring manufacturers.
Yeah.
Which is essentially within percentage of what the Miura springs started out at.
Brilliant.
And Yeah, so that's the other main cause for concern for if the engine's going to rev a bit more highly. Because Espada valves float at just over 7,200 RPM with the standard springs.
And then the fact was they'd actually weakened over time as well. Exactly. So they needed to be replaced, and we've just made them that little bit stronger.
Exactly.
Terrific. Well, that's been great. See the engine, start going back together. How many months is that? It's about 4 or 5 months, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something like that to get all the parts together. But yeah, it's just magic. I just think it's one of the most beautiful engines, and to see it sort of being reborn is just great to watch. So thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah. So there we go. So I hope you enjoyed this video as well. I hope you have, because there'll be some more videos coming along very soon.